Jude and I met the week before lockdown started at a dinner where we introduced ourselves with our elbows, if you remember. And we felt it was sort of strangely naughty to be still haven't been able to go out and have dinner. But it was a brilliant night, and you were still with Data Lab at that point, but about to start your role as CEO of SBRC. And after that, I've been on a couple of webinars with you, a couple of Zoom meetings. And the last one, I was thinking about what you were saying and how the challenges around starting a new job during the lockdown. And what I really wanted to, when we first started talking about this, it was going to be around induction. But actually, in terms of what you were telling me, I thought it fitted much better into the theme of leadership. And so I'd really love to focus on that and just how the last 3 weeks since you've been in post have been for you. So just give us a bit of an overview of your background and perhaps why you took the role on as CEO, because that'd be really interesting.
So I probably felt that I was at the stage in my life that with my kids who are 15 and 11, so probably in the last 18 months that I felt ready for the next step. And I started doing some programs and stuff around exec ed and non-exec development, took on a few board positions. And then the job did come up. There aren't that many roles in kind of around IT or also with that human element of the social good as well. That's what I was after, not just a pure corporate role. So the role at the CEO of SBRC came up and I applied for it, and it was a few months of a process, but hadn't met all of the board. I knew some of the team in there and I hadn't met all of the board, but they interviewed me and I just felt an absolute amazing rapport with them that I was like, I really want this job now. Got on so well, the interviews were so well structured that played to my strengths, but also probably to my weaknesses as well to see. So I had a very strong background in IT, but what did I have around resilience? And they pushed me through different ways and scenarios and stuff like that, and role plays as well, just threw things at me and stuff, and it was absolutely brilliant. It was a really good process. The week after, everybody was talking about resilience and what they were going to do around lockdown and stuff, and people were like, should we send our staff home, should we not? There was no official guidance on anything. Everything was as business as normal, but there was this undercurrent going, actually we need to be prepared. So I went, spoke to the team and I said, look, I'm going to come in because we need to put some sort of resilience plan in place. I'm not your CEO for another 2 weeks, but I want to be able to meet with you guys. I want to be able to put something so that you know there's a leadership in place, even though you don't have a CEO at the time. And I also asked them to put together 3 points about themselves, so who they were, what they did for SBRC, where they think SBRC should focus in the future, and also things that they really think that SBRC is capable of going forward in about 5 years' time as well. So everybody filled that in, and then I arranged one-to-ones with them, which were supposed to be in face-to-face, but then they were virtual. So, and then the official day of starting, I was like, this is really weird. I don't feel like a CEO. This isn't what I envisaged or I imagined.
When was that? Was that the 1st of April? When was your actual start?
The 28th of March.
The 28th of March. But actually, the first SBRC webinar was the day before your official start date. Is that right?
Yeah, because Paul Atkinson from Power Equity called me and said, right, you're taking over as CEO of the Scottish Business Resilience Centre. So what are they going to do about making Scotland resilient around COVID? And I was like, I actually don't know. This is not what I thought I'd be doing. And he was like, well, you better start thinking, Jude. And he said that he'd support me. So he's been there since the beginning of all this with me, around looking at what topics and stuff we should cover. So we put together a plan around webinars, and it was flying by the seat of our pants in the beginning, going, is this going to work? Is this our role? You know, who else should be doing this? But I couldn't see any other organisations.
But but I think that is remarkable, because it's pre your official start. And actually, I suppose one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what was your vision? Your vision for going, you've obviously had time to think about it, given you've had a prolonged, the interview process went on for a while. So what were you thinking that your key priorities would be, and how different were they in practice?
So I think my key priorities were getting SBRC more business focused and in with the business community even more than what they were. So we have probably about 120 members, and for all of Scotland, that's pretty small. But the community that it works in is huge. And also the guidance that it gives, and the thought leadership wasn't really getting out there with the police, with the fire, with the heads of security from all the different banks and stuff like that as well. So the information inside SBRC wasn't really getting out to basically say this is what we do. So I had a plan in place around how I was going to bring in probably my networks, my contacts and stuff like that as well to make it bigger and better. But I didn't think that would be in the first week of the job. So it was kind of like, we take this opportunity and we run with it. And also speaking to the team, that some of them I hadn't even met, particularly Claire in events and stuff, that I was like, are you on for this? And she was like, amazing, because she thought she was probably going to be let go because she ran events or she's going to be furloughed and stuff. And I was like, we turn all this on its head. We take the opportunities. We were out there. And also I think the thing that drove me to it as well was the sadness for organizations.
But in that first 2 weeks when I spoke to you, so you had how many? 120 members.
Yeah.
And what was the uptake in terms of views or of people who subscribed to those webinars?
We've added to over 2,000 people now to our CRM system, new companies that have interacted with SBRC in 2 weeks. So that's a huge volume of people interacting with us managing that interaction, and also making sure that the stuff that we're doing is very applicable and it's on point. And that's quite hard to judge as well when you're doing an event that you don't actually hang around and speak to the people afterwards, and you get off the stage and everybody wants to come up and talk to you. You kind of just finish the webinar and you're going, I didn't even see anybody's faces. I don't know if that was okay. Feedback that actually, so that sadness that I felt as well, that it kind of turned around going, wow, this has really paid off. The chance, the risk, giving up my holidays, working weekends and stuff, that you get emails back in that there was one guy that owned 10 shops in the Highlands, and he thought that his only option was to close down. And he went on 3 of the webinars. He now had a plan in place. He knew what he had to do. He just felt so isolated and so alone because he was like, there's nobody around. I couldn't see this advice anywhere. It was nonsense. It was it's very high level information that's coming out going, here, apply for CBILS. There was no information about why they should, what they need to be prepared for, what banks are asking for. So it was kind of calming down that hysteria as well, and everybody understanding that they were all in the same boat, and catching up with our board members as well, because some of the board members I know and some of them I don't. And one of the directors at Malcolm Group, the haulage companies, he was like, we were okay, we're bucking the trend and stuff. But like me, he was going, there are companies that aren't, and friends of his that he was like, you need to get onto the webinars of SBRC. And he gave me feedback yesterday via friends of his and contacts of his going, I've completely pivoted, or I've completely changed my thinking. I've been energized about it. It's not all doom and gloom. There are options for me out there. So that's really nice to hear. But again, you're hearing it all virtually.
And I think what's amazing about what you've done though is because I'd met you, I heard about the webinar, wasn't a member of SBRC, but all those webinars you have given away to the Scottish business community. So you've given, the goodwill, you've done it for free, you've done it for the greater good. And just talk about, because that's in lots of the webinars that we're watching at the moment, that's a key point is give of your time, add value in any way that you can, because we're all in this crisis together. So just give me some thoughts on that.
I think I was very clear with people when I went out with the ask, and also not just my contacts, but Paul Atkinson's got a huge, he opened up all his contact list and stuff, and he's got huge respect around Scotland and stuff as well. And both of us were had the same vision and the same ethos, that whoever helps out here, it's not anybody that's what could like snake oil salesman. This is not what we're about. It's about taking the information, putting it into bite-sized chunks, delivering the high-level information when we feel it's applicable. So the startup funding that was announced last week, we're going to do that next Tuesday, because we hope all the details and stuff will be out, and the people that, so we're working daily with Adelshaw, Goodard, with A Squared B and stuff to say, do you think we're ready? So that like the job retention portal, that'll be covered tomorrow. So when things are announced, it takes a few days. So it's not that knee-jerk reaction going, we're just going to go out and talk about it with no detail on it. And everybody that came forward was of the same opinion. So people that you would historically think, it's going to cost me £2,000 or £3,000 to even get that bit of advice, and I'm going to have to make maybe 5 or 10 phone calls to get that advice. People were coming off with reams of advice that they knew that they could educate themselves, and they knew what they didn't know before the call. And nobody has discussed money with me.
But as the new chief exec, your leadership styles are known to your team. How did you determine what your priorities were and fast track the trust building process with them? Because they must have been sat back going, what's going to happen and what direction are we going in? So what have you done internally for the team, from a team perspective?
I think spending as much time with them as well, even if it was virtually, say we don't know each other.
How big is the team?
16. And then we have ethical hackers. We've got about 16, 17 ethical hackers as well, who I feel like a mother to them, because they're all 17 and 18-year-olds, again, living in their flats by themselves and stuff, and going, what are we supposed to be doing? So bringing them into the team rather than...
Such a cool job title.
Yeah. And they're amazing. Like, they just I remember the first week I was really... In the second week, I remember thinking on the Thursday, I'm really tired, but I one-to-one session with them and going, oh my God, this is the future of cybersecurity. And these people, actually, they've got this, the thing that I was trying to get across in all the webinars and stuff was this level of calmness. And they were doing that. Everything I was going, oh, here, cyber is a bad word today. Zoom's a bad word today. Zoom's the new toilet roll of COVID and stuff. And then they come out and they go, it's fine, Jude. We've checked this out. Here's a list of the guidelines that you should be doing if you go onto Zoom. And I said, am I okay doing them? I think somebody will try and hack you, but don't worry about it. We're here behind you. Stuff. And I was like, great. I also have an amazing police officer, Dave McCorry, who was counter-terrorism police, and now he's been called back into the force, but he still keeps in contact with us. He does our daily fitness routine. He's been training as a personal trainer as well, and he still comes on to the weekly calls. I never felt like a fraud before in my career, but sitting at home being a CEO of a company that you don't really know and people you don't know, I did feel like a fraud. I felt like a consultant that was coming in to do some work or something like that. And I was like, they don't know me. I don't know me. I probably felt the guilt that you feel, or not the guilt, but the kind of like crisis and confidence that you get after you come back from maternity leave, going, what the hell? This is like nothing like I imagined what it was going to be like.
I think when I spoke to you and said, how's it been for the first 2 weeks? I love that you've got 2 children at home. Yeah. And in all your webinars, I think what comes across is you're just so human and so honest, and your candor is just shines through. So even the first one where you're kind of saying, I had a few tantrums over the weekend, couldn't get the tech to work. And at the end you're going, oh, unmute. I don't know how to turn it off. Claire, turn it off. It's just very human. I love that. And what you said, very quickly was you phoned people because you were worried that they felt pressurized, as you recounted it to me, that they would feel pressurized to go, I've got to impress. I've got a new CEO. I've got to impress her. And I loved your response to that and how you dealt with that in terms of, look, stay at home, look after your children. It's the Easter holidays. Take that time, do what you can do. And that's I think that's unique as well.
I've been really lucky that the way that I've been supported as a mother right through from when I've had my children, it's probably because I chose my bosses really well. They didn't choose, it was like kind of going, are they going to be authentic? Are they going to stand by me when I needed something? The first job that I had over here was, and I remember it was running an agency and stuff, and I remember having I told them I was pregnant and stuff like that as well, and then it was a lady boss that I had. She'll never watch this anyhow, but I remember she said to me, so I was like 7 months pregnant, and she said,
sending it to her.
Yeah, don't stand up in this pitch because they'll know you're pregnant. You look pregnant now. And I was like, at 7 months, I think, yeah, I do. And I felt like I had to hide my bump and hide that I was going to be a mother and stuff. And I was like, I'm never getting myself into that position ever again. I'm never going to be that I have to sit down during a pitch. And she said to me at the end of the meeting, you stood up and you gave out those things, I think the senior bump. And after that, then I had my child worked. None of the staff had children like that. So I had my first child, and then my husband was in a really bad cycling accident. And I had to try and, no family, nothing. And I had to try and look after a 1-year-old, and also visit him in intensive care and high dependence stuff for weeks. And then help him then come back in and then work and stuff. And I was getting no support. It was just kind of like, just do it. And I just said, you know what, I was selling my house in Ireland. I'd moved over here a year and a half ago. And I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm taking a break because I don't want to look back on her first years of her life and go, and I felt so much anxiety or stress around my job that I was only trying to keep other people happy and keep profits in their pockets. So that's probably why I do the social good kind of thing as well, because, and also I don't want anyone, I want to look back on COVID and go, it was nice family time. Yeah, I didn't have to travel. My kids have been around. I hear them laughing. I hear them joking and stuff like that as well. We're reading more. We're eating nice things. We're baking and stuff like that as well. I never, ever want to think that in a few years' time that somebody would look back and go, we had a new CEO and we hated that time of COVID and we felt under pressure. We felt under stress. And they have worked the backsides off for me, like even weekends and stuff like that. They've worked when the kids are in bed, when even with the kids sitting on their laps and stuff, we all know each other. And I said to them, this is not going to be perfect. And I am not expecting perfection from any of you. And you could see the kind of relief coming into their face going, all right, she's okay. And it is about living with that and living by those rules.
But hasn't it, it's funny because in one sense, we had a social call on Friday night, and for the extroverts, if you say, what's the thing you miss the most? It would be the physical contact. I can't go and hug my mates. I can walk around the corner and see them from 10 feet, but I can't physically get a hold of them there is this remoteness from virtually speaking to people, and yet it fast tracks the relationships that you have with them. So my friend who also started a new job was saying yesterday that a lot of the business calls with his boss and with his peers, there's a load of social before they actually get to the nitty gritty.
Like we have our team meetings and stuff, and I've got Eamon who is the head of cyber, and he's very regimented around the agenda and stuff, ex-police and stuff. And I was going, he's going, right, everybody get back to the agenda. And I'm like, it's like as if we just all got together for the first time in 6 months, and none of us, and we've all got to know each other. And it's just, so what, just do this, and what are the kids doing? And Dave talks about the fitness stuff and everything. And Eamon's like, right. I said, okay, we need Eamon to go through the agenda. So it could be 15 minutes of that chitter chatter. And then I go, that's why we did the coffee mornings then, go, no business talk. We just have a laugh. They tell me.
What have you done? What social stuff have you done in order to get to know people?
I think they're all really into their fitness and stuff, and they're all into running and walking, and some of the guys are in, and I think also because a lot of them were in the police and stuff, they tell really funny stories about, because they all knew each other or they knew somebody and stuff. So it's, yeah, I actually laugh about the way that it's just the way that they tell. Like yesterday as well, I was just saying to different people, there was tears in my eyes coming off the calls for some of the stuff that the people that I work with are very, I don't know, I think if I was doing a crap job, they'd tell me. They're very direct. But they're also really funny, and they're really into just looking after each other and stuff. So I couldn't have been luckier to, and also I think I probably wouldn't have got to know them as well if COVID, it probably took me about 6 months to get to know them. So they're just amazing. And we kind of got into a rhythm now of the way we work, and when we know that so-and-so will be feeding their kids at this time and stuff like that. So it is really, really nice.
When you started, you said your diary was full with external appointments.
Yeah.
And this has changed it. The crisis changed that those appointments were cancelled. But I think what you said to me was that you haven't followed up on those appointments. You've prioritized getting to know the internal team instead. And would that not be a great piece of advice for any new CEO?
And I think I had that conscious, because it probably before I'd say about 3 years ago, remember when I started in the data lab, I think looking back at personal development and 360 feedback, was people used to say, I wish Jude was as good internally as she was externally. So I would just go 1,000 miles an hour and then think that everybody behind me was on the same speed, and they were just sitting there going, what is she doing? And I spent a lot of time with the Deputy Chief Constable Malcolm Graham before this all kicked. Not a lot of time, but a lot of time in his book would be like 2 or 3 hours. So that's a lot of time to get with the DCC. And it was like, I said, am I going to be okay with the police and everything? You're going to be fine, Jude, totally fine. And that's it. That they're the kind of things that worries me. So I was like, right, I'm going to spend as much time with the people side of things. And then with COVID, it was like, I felt that thing going, what the hell's going on? So of course they're going to feel it as well, and then they're going to feel it even worse because they've got a new boss and they've got family at home, and everything's different, everything's changed.
And has it given you the opportunity to pivot as the SBRC? I know it's not really a pivot for you because you're new to it, but the webinars instead of the events, will that be the future, or what do you think will happen post COVID?
This yesterday, and I think what I wanted to do as well was a lot of strategic thinking and stuff, and it probably, even during the interview, I'd say what came across was this is going to be SBRC version 2. And I can't lose focus on that as well. So what do we need strategically, and how do we interim do what we want to do, and then why do we look at the overall strategic plan and what we should be doing? And there's things that was very, was it like sectioned? Everything was, so cyber was here, bits of resilience was here, transport was here and stuff, but it should just be all about resilience. And why should we do separate events and stuff for different areas? We should be doing maybe, a day, a 1 day a year event around all different types of resilience, and no huge things to fix, just kind of tidying it up and making sure that they're focused and they know what the purpose is going forward.
And what do you think, from a business resilience perspective, what should be the priorities for business owners and board of directors at this time?
There's a few different things, and I suppose it depends on, you seem to speak to two different camps of people, those that are doing really, really well, and then they're looking for other opportunities and stuff like that as well. But then they've got the issue around the people side of things. Are they going to get sick and stuff? I think as well, it's about cash flow. It's about, the one thing that I've noticed from doing these sessions is that Scottish people are very reluctant to make hard decisions. So in Ireland, whenever, just because I grew up in the tech industry, it was quite cutthroat, and it was really refreshing then to work back over here in Scotland. But if a hard decision had to be made, it was made straight away. There was no having meetings about it and stuff like that. So I think it's making the hard decisions and also preparing for what's the next wave. What way do we do our business next? And also not being too hard on your staff. You're asking them to take their business your business into their homes. Don't create more angst for your employees.
Have you been mentored in the past, or have you got any role models that you admire?
So my mentor, I had mentoring for about a year after getting that feedback saying about that I wish I was better internally. I wish I was as good internally as I was externally. I kind of sat back, and that was a pivot point for me, going, people just need to get on with it and stuff. They need to be able to support me and understand me and stuff. And then I sat down with Gail Krigo, Gail Logan, her name's now, and she worked in Skyscanner. So myself and herself hit it off really well. She's a very straight talking person. She was able to give it to me straight, going, but this is what you need to do. And it felt for about 6 months that I was on Valium. People would look at me and go, what's wrong with her? She's in the office 3 days. She's sitting down at her desk. She's having coffees. I had to explain more about what I was doing. I had to take them more on a journey rather than go and catch up.
So globally, we've witnessed some really effective leadership, often from female heads of state. Mm-hmm. Anybody stand out for you, and why?
In a non-political way, I think our own First Minister. I think she's been amazing. And also Kath Calderwood, she is the Chief Medical Officer, but she made a mistake of travelling to her weekend home. And I think that she was doing an amazing job, her and the First Minister. They were a dream team together. You could sit there, and actually I haven't even watched the news since she's left, because again, this level of, here's the facts, this is the way we do it. Same with Jason Leach as well. Let's be practical about this, the same way as Police Scotland's doing it. Be adult about it. And she brought that. And also I knew her before from before COVID and stuff, and we worked with her on obesity around children. And she's a practicing obstetrician and gynecologist and stuff. And an amazing person. And when I'd seen her standing on the TV, I said, she's the right person for this. But there was no forgiveness. It was an attack on a woman that made a mistake. And I felt really, really bad for her. I felt sadness again about her, that she could have done that job. She could have continued on if the press had left her. And also it turned into a political thing around SNP. It shouldn't have been. It should have been about the health of people in this country. And also Jacinda Ardern then as well in New Zealand. I think she's fantastic. She's a mother. She's doing Facebook Lives with sweatshirts on, with bubbles from the bath still on her top and stuff going. It's not easy doing this and also having to bath children and stuff like that as well. So given that human element, and I think there'll be a lot of positives coming out of COVID, and that'll be one of the things going, the things that women do in business, and as well as looking after children and also being human about it and being able to say, I couldn't cope yesterday, or I was able to cope yesterday. And instead of trying to be super women in our lives and just saying, hands up, I'm struggling today.
Thank you very much, and good luck in your ongoing role as CEO of SBRC.
Thank you for all your support. You're amazing.